Bonn Park is supported by JOLANTA'S European Spa, a sanctuary of relaxation and rejuvenation. JOLANTA'S is the only accredited 5-star spa in Kitchener-Waterloo. The award-winning spa with its tall, bright windows is an oasis where guests can find solace from a stressful world and feel like they're relaxing in a room reminiscent of a French square. The professional estheticians and massage therapists at JOLANTA'S use the best quality products and techniques. The staff at JOLANTA'S follow the most stringent sanitation guidelines to ensure time spent at the spa is safe and stress-free. The COVID-19 pandemic has created unique challenges for spas, and JOLANTA'S prides themselves on applying meticulous sanitation protocols as safety for their staff and their community is their top priority. From PPEs and acrylic protective shields for the front desk, to pedicures and manicures, safety measures, to the best sanitation products on the market. Despite these uncertain times, JOLANTA'S European hospitality is still the same, leaving you feeling balanced, refreshed, and restored. This dedication to quality has led to JOLANTA'S being recognized as one of Canada's standard bearers for spa excellence. They credit their loyal clientele over the last 28 years for their continued growth. That growth will continue in 2021 when JOLANTA'S moves to a new facility. Until then, JOLANTA'S European Spa is located at 646 Herb Street West in Waterloo. Learn more and book an appointment at yolantas.com or call 519-725-9999. You can also follow JOLANTA'S on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Life is complicated lately with many sources of worry or anxiety. You owe it to yourself to carve out some me time or to give the gift of serenity to someone who needs it. At JOLANTA'S, it doesn't take much imagination to feel like you're truly being pampered at a beautiful spa in Europe. Sure, international travel isn't really an option these days, but you can let JOLANTA'S transport you to a more serene place, at least for a while. Bonn Park is supported by the Cinnamon Shop. Love, patience, and dedication are the secret ingredients behind the Cinnamon Shop's big, fluffy, and delicious cinnamon rolls. Made with Boreal premium organic flour and the best wholesome ingredients, these ooey-gooey pastry swirls will have you hooked after just one taste. The family-run Cinnamon Shop at the St. Jacob's Farmers Market keeps things simple and delicious. They have only 2 offerings, the classic cinnamon rolls and their phyllo cinnamon custard roll. Why add more when regular customers keep coming back for the same incredible treats? The phyllo cinnamon custard rolls are a sight to behold, with layers of flaky pastry filled with velvety cream and finished with a light lemony cinnamon syrup. A box of cinnamon rolls and phyllo cinnamon custard rolls is a divine combination, believe us. So pick up a box for your family or share a sweet surprise with someone special in your life. This fall, stop by the market and enjoy one of their rolls for breakfast with a big cup of coffee. They're so good together. The Cinnamon Shop is located in the Peddlers Village of the St. Jacob's Farmers Market on Thursdays and Saturdays. Delivery is available through Uber Eats on market days. And follow them on Instagram @_the Cinnamon Shop. From now till October 3rd, 2020, Bonn Park listeners can get 25% off their purchase at the Cinnamon Shop just by mentioning our podcast. So treat yourself. Bonn Park is supported by the Jelly Girls. It must be jelly, because jam don't shake like that. The Jelly Girls make food that shakes and shakes your taste buds, like cranberry apple jelly, green pepper jelly, grape goodness jelly, and ooh la la for the culinary touriste, Indian curry red pepper jelly. Oh, and they have a turnip concoction called Turnip the Beet, which tastes as fun as it sounds, thanks to fresh beets, dill, and garlic. The Jelly Girls' amazing jellies are handmade out of Our Kitchen Brantford, a commercial kitchen, food incubator, and food shop serving chefs, bakers, makers, and everyone who loves food. This fall, at the St. Jacob's Farmers Market, the Jelly Girls products are available at Franny's Farmhouse in the Peddlers Village. And get this, the owner, Catherine Farrar, grew up in Mossley, Ontario as Catherine Jelly, daughter of Betty and James R. Jelly. When jelly is literally your family name, you better make a great jelly. And they do. They make delicious vitamin-packed jellies and jams using a variety of high-quality berries, peppers, and other fresh ingredients. Spicy jelly make you thirsty? The Jelly Girls recommend using their product as part of fruity cocktails or yogurt or other palate pleasers. Catherine Farrar's Our Kitchen Brantford is pleased to present their Our Kitchen Brantford 2021 calendar for pre-order, with a portion of the sales going to Soup for the Soul to help feed their community. Our Kitchen Brantford is also offering the Food Venture Program free to qualifying small food businesses. You can find the Jelly Girls products at thejellygirls.ca, check out ourkitchenbrantford.ca, follow them on Instagram @thejellygirls, or follow them on Facebook. It must be jelly, because jam don't shake like that.
Welcome to Bonn Park.
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 Welcome to Bonn Park. I'm Sara Geidlinger.
And I'm Marshall Ward.
And today we have Michael Kelly Cavan.
Michael is an Irish tenor, singer-songwriter,
and he's been playing live music for about 50 years now.
I think he said that he banked his 10,000 hours 3 times.
Yep, that's right. Anyways, I'm so excited. This is a first for Bonn Park, where we have a performer playing 6 songs live for us here in studio. So this is very much a kind of a half musical and half storytelling episode for us.
Yeah, I really enjoyed Michael. Let's get to it.
Yeah.
This will probably dictate where you would put this song, but okay. So I'm going to do a song here that I've written recently. So one of the things that's happened for me over the past 3 months since the beginning of the pandemic, the situation being that I'm not gigging anymore, or very rarely, and so I did begin this this I don't know what you would call it, adventure of posting songs up on Facebook, and shortly after I had done that, the first couple of times, a musician friend of mine pointed out the fact that in North Bay, Ontario, which is where I grew up. I was born in Ireland, but I grew up in North Bay. There was this website called Bit of the Bay, and run by a guy named Jeff Fournier. And anyways, this friend of mine said, you should post your songs on there, because I had a few songs that were related to North Bay. And so I started posting the songs on there, and it's been actually a wonderful experience. A lot of different reasons it's wonderful. Some of it is the fact that so I posted a song on there, and then all these people that I went to elementary school and high school with that I haven't seen in 40 plus years started responding, and I was having chats with these people, and then a lot of people were just loving that somebody was writing songs about North Bay, because I was referring to places in North Bay. And so anyways, as a result of doing that, and I had been writing for about 30, 40 years or more, and so I had this accumulation of a certain number of songs that were about North Bay. I ran out of songs, after a month and a half or something. Maybe I had about 5 or 6 songs, so I was posting one a week, and then I realized, well, in order to be actually on this site, one of the requirements is it's a North Bay historical cultural site. So people are mostly posting pictures from the past or stories or all the sports teams and the high schools, and it's just all this, everything you can imagine from any town where you'd have all these memories. People would have memories related to all those things. And so I don't know whether what happened or what revelation I had or whatever, but I just realized I've got to write some more songs about North Bay. So then I started to think of things that I remembered as a kid. And so one of the things I remembered, which is not unique to North Bay, but was the Midway. That every summer, so at some point in the year, the Midway would come. So I wrote a song called When the Midway Came to Town, and which is basically just a snapshot of images based on my memories of the Midway. When the Midway came to town, set up at the garden grounds, it sure brightened up our year. Nothing much happens here. We had smiles instead of frowns, put our hard-earned money down when the Midway came to town. Lord, I love the crazy mouse and the swinging carousel. Coaxed my mother on it once, she got sick and gave me hell. Twice around the tilt-a-whirl, every year a different girl. Crazy lights and crazy sounds when the Midway came to town. When the Midway came to town, set up at the garden grounds, it sure brightened up our year. Nothing much happens here. We had smiles instead of frowns, put our hard-earned money down when the Midway came to town. Oh, there were barkers all about, trying to fish us suckers in. When I played, I tried my best, but I never seemed to win. Once I took my latest flame, and we played a bottle game, spent a week or pay or more, won a 6-foot dinosaur. When the midway came to town, set up at the garden grounds, it sure brightened up our year. Nothing much happened here. We had smiles instead of frowns, put our hard-earned money down when the midway came to town. Candy apples, candy floss, bells to ring and balls to toss, water pistols and balloons, guess you're waiting Looney Tunes, Zipper and the Hurricane, octopus and backward train, bumper cars and gravitron, think I rode on every one. Oh, when the midway came to town, set up at the garden grounds, it sure brightened up our year. Nothing much happens here. We had smiles instead of frowns, put our hard-earned money down when the midway came to town. I always noticed how those guys who made the rides go round had a sadness in their eyes, like the world had got them down. I always tried to take the time to thank them for the fun, give them a chance to smile along with everyone. Here we go. When the midway came to town, set up at the garden grounds, it sure brightened up our year. Nothing much happens here. We had smiles instead of frowns, put our hard-earned money down when the midway came to town. And when Monday morning came, all the rides had been pulled down. The trucks moved in a line as they headed out of town, off to bring a little joy, put a smile upon the face of some other girls and boys in another sleepy place. One more time. Oh, when the midway came to town, set up at the garden grounds, sure brightened up our year. Nothing much happens here. We had smiles instead of frowns, put our hard-earned money down when the midway came to town. We had smiles instead of frowns, put our hard-earned money down when the midway came to town. Yeah, so I'm going to do a song that Marshall requested here. This is not one of my own songs. It's but a beautiful, I would call it a contemporary Irish song. It's a song written by a fellow named Brendan Graham. Now, you wouldn't know the name, but Brendan Graham is also the fellow that wrote You Raise Me Up by Josh Groban, that song, beautiful song. But yeah, so he wrote this other song called Isle of Hope, Isle of Tears, which is based on, you know, a bit of American history about people who came to Ellis Island. On the 23rd of January, 1892, they opened Ellis Island and they let the people through. And the first to cross the threshold of that land of hope and tears was Annie Moore of Ireland, who was only 15 years. Isle of hope, Isle of tears, Isle of freedom, Isle of fears, but it's not the isle you left behind. That isle of hunger, isle of pain, isle you'll never see again, for the isle of home is always on your mind. In a little bag she carried all her past and history, and dreams for the future in the land of liberty. And courage is your password when your old world disappears. And there's no future in your past when you were only 15 years. Isle of hope, Isle of tears, Isle of freedom, Isle of fears, but it's not the isle you left behind. That isle of hunger, isle of pain, isle you'll never see again, for the isle of home is always on your mind. When they closed down Ellis Island in 1943, 17 million people had come there for sanctuary. And in springtime when I went there and I stood upon its pier, I wondered how it must have felt when you were 15 years. Isle of hope, Isle of tears, Isle of freedom, Isle of fears, but it's not the isle you left behind. That isle of hunger, Isle of pain, isle you'll never see again, for the isle of home is always on your mind. That isle of hunger, Isle of pain, isle you'll never see again, for the isle of home is always on your mind. This is a song I wrote a few years ago. One of my older sisters, Mary, is married to a fellow by the name of John, and he's from Newfoundland. And in fact, Mary and they have 3 girls. They were all born in Newfoundland, and they lived there for about 15 years or more. My sister, I think she met John in Toronto, and then they moved back to Newfoundland. And then after a number of years, they came back up here to Ontario, and they moved to North Bay. So they still live in North Bay. So John's an integral part of our family, and I'm from a big family, basically 13 kids ultimately, but right now there's 10 of us left. So, but I had 6 sisters and 6 brothers. Yeah. So, John is one of those, he has definitely got the Newfie sense of humor and great with the one-liners. And so I don't recall when it was, or, certainly this song is more than 10 years old. At some family gathering, John came up with this line, in fact, I think he used it. He got opportunity to use it a lot with us because we were an arguing family, as I remember it, and my mother was probably the instigator of a lot of that, in the sense that my mom, like a quiet, gentle woman, but a quick mind. And so we were the kind of family that, we didn't agree to the old proverb that says, never discuss politics or religion. That's probably all we used to discuss around the supper table, and it got pretty wild sometimes. So, but John would be at the family events, and we'd be doing that kind of thing. And so this is a little song called "In 100 Years." I've got a brother-in-law, his name is John. Guess you could say he's a man of few words. He likes to listen to us go on and on, talking about all the problems of the world. And when we've rambled along for a while, He'll lift his head up and say with a smile, in 100 years, what will it matter? In 100 years, we'll all be gone. We can live our lives for worse or for better, but we'll be lucky to be a memory in somebody's history in 100 years. Sometimes when I'm out traveling on the road and I pass by a place of last repose, I get to think of the souls lying there. Oh, lots of souls that nobody even knows. And I get to wonder if it ever crossed their mind an old weathered stone would be all they'd leave behind. 'Cause in 100 years, what will it matter? In 100 years, we'll all be gone. We can live our lives for worse or for better, but we'll be lucky to be a memory in somebody's history in 100 years. Now I don't think it's such a bad thing if we learn how to live every day like it matters right here and right now, and we don't let our time slip away. Do unto others as you'd have them do to you. Follow your heart, to your own self be true. 'Cause in 100 years, what will it matter? In 100 years, we'll all be gone. We can live our lives for worse or for better, but right or wrong, short or long, we'll all be gone. In 100 years, what will it matter? In 100 years, we'll all be gone. We can live our lives for worse or for better, but we'll be lucky to be a memory in somebody's history in 100 years. You know, it's funny, though, one little weird thing that I have another brother-in-law, whose name was Armand, and it's always, and Armand died maybe 3 years ago, 4 years ago, maybe more than that. I'm bad with the timelines. But I always feel bad that I didn't write a song for Armand, because Armand was also, they were kind of, there's my Deirdre and Mary are my two oldest sisters, and so in terms of in-laws, they're kind of they're permanent, maybe because of my age, because I think I was about 10 when my older sister got married, and then I think Mary got married maybe a couple of years after that. So they've been sort of in the family when I was still living at home, you know, and so they kind of hold the same place in things, and I could have written a great song about my brother-in-law Armand, because he was French Canadian, Armand Duguay. French Canadian fellow, and he was just an industrious character and just an interesting character, really good, you know, kind of a builder type guy. Built a beautiful cottage and was always building things, and also had, you know, interesting views about things. So I sometimes I think in some book somewhere I have the beginnings of a song about Uncle Armand, you know. But anyways, yeah, Uncle John is quite the guy. So this is a song, yes, it's called "That's How We Rolled Back in the Day," and it's interesting. One of the cool things about writing is that, and this is one thing I'm loving about the my return to Facebook and then getting people to respond to what I'm putting up. And it's just the conversations are great. And then as a songwriter, things happen. People say, like I'm going to do one other song that I wrote too. Both of these came out of somebody either posting something on Facebook or saying something in response to a song. And probably I would never have written these songs had I not had, because that's the way it works, right? Something happens and you just, well, at least for me and for a lot of people, you hear the line. And so actually what happened was a woman posted a picture of a station wagon from the late 50s, early 60s, a Ford Fairlane or something. And it was a picture of a family, I guess, getting ready to pull out of the yard or go on a little bit of a drive. And it shows you can see the parents in the front seat. And then it shows the window in the back seat. And there's got to be at least 5 or 6 little faces looking out the window of the car. And, and it said, and across the top it said, "That's how we roll back in the day." So I thought, oh my God, because we definitely did that one. I mean, in terms of it all, a big family, they're never all home at once, but I'm sure there were times, I'm trying to remember, but there were at least 6 or 7 of us or 8 of us that were still living in the house. So there's a good possibility that, at least 6 of us would have gotten in the car on Sunday and gone for a drive. I know we went for Sunday drives. I just can't remember the count. But I remember sitting on somebody's lap. So you were squeezed in the back seat. So this is a little song called "That's How We Rolled." That's how we rolled back in the day. My daddy didn't travel much, but he used to drive a Rambler. Played cards with his buddies once a month, but he wasn't much a gambler. Long before the Highway Traffic Act made seatbelts mandatory, Mom and Dad would pack the 8 of us in the back seat of a car and take a drive on Sunday. That's how we rolled back in the day. Things were loose in so many ways. We made a life and had some fun with whatever came along. That's how we rolled back in the day. We didn't wear no fancy duds. Spent all our free time by the water and in the woods. From the very break of dawn till the sun was going down, we had as much fun as we could. Did some crazy things when I think back, put blasting caps on the railroad track, hid in the bushes till that train came rolling down, then ran like hell when we heard that sound. That's how we rolled back in the day. Things were loose in so many ways. We made a life and had some fun with whatever came along. That's how we roll back in the day. Had a bike with high handlebars, had a clothes peg and an old playing card. Lord, I love to make that noise, made me feel like Satan's choice when I pulled out of the yard. Found empty bottles all along the road, cashed them in down at the Loblaw store. When I had a buck or two, me and my Peggy Sue went to the Odeon to catch a show. That's how we rolled back in the day. Things were loose in so many ways. Made a life and had some fun with whatever came along. That's how we roll back in the day. Lived by a river and 2 railroad tracks, one highway out the front and the other out the back. Mom would say go out and play, we'd be gone most of the day. It's a wonder that we all came back. All those memories in my past What a ride it was, what a blast. Every twist and every turn, all the lessons that I learned. My one regret is that it went too fast. That's how we roll back in the day. Things were loose in so many ways. We made a laugh and had some fun with whatever came along. That's how we roll back in the day. That's how we roll back in the day. Things were loose in so many ways. We made a laugh and had some fun with whatever came along. That's how we roll back in the day. We made a laugh and had some fun with whatever came along. That's how we roll back in the day. So next song I'm going to do is a song called Child of Immigrants. It's a song I wrote quite a few years ago now that I think of it, 25, 30 years ago. And it's based on just family history. We came from Ireland in 1955. My mom came across the ocean with nine of us on a ship. And my father had already been here for about a year before. And now, he was in North Bay at the time, North Bay, Ontario. And we ended up there because in the area of the Townslands, or the region of Ireland where my father came from and my mother, a number of people had emigrated before them, and a number of them came to Canada to work in the mines in Sudbury and Timmins and all that. And so I think initially my father came to... with the idea of going to work in the mines. And, I'm not really 100% sure of this story, but he ended up, he wasn't a miner. He didn't want to work in the mines. And he was actually a contractor before he left Ireland. My grandfather had a big building contract company, building houses and even subdivisions around Ireland back in the 30s and 40s. So for some reason he ended up in North Bay. I think he actually worked on the building of the uranium mine on the I think they're called the Manitou Islands in the middle of Lake Nipissing, and then ended up working for John's Manville, which was a big pulp and paper place in North Bay. And so this is just a song about 3 verses of a synopsis of the journey from Ireland to North Bay. And it's called Child of Immigrants. And the other aspect about it, it's called Child of Immigrants, is there's a particular thing that children of immigrants go through. And I was just going on 3 years old, so my whole life, I would say, I came to consciousness in North Bay, although my wife says I still haven't come to consciousness. But so my memories are really attached to North Bay. It's that duckling thing, whatever the duck sees, the duckling sees. I feel that incredibly. I mean, as much as I've been back to Ireland a number of times, and there's obviously a draw to Ireland. Most of my extended family are there, all cousins and aunts and uncles. But there's nothing like driving to North Bay for me. It's just home. It's just going home. So, anyways, but this is called called Being a Child of Immigrants, or called Child of Immigrants. For reasons I may never know, my father chose to fly away to North America to see what he might find. He sent my mom a letter saying, "Pack the kids and come." So we left our house in Arva Town and sailed to our new home. We sailed aboard a Scania, a ship from Liverpool, crossed the wide Atlantic to the port of Montreal. My mother took us on by train to settle in North Bay, a town in North Ontario with Ireland far away. Oh, I'm a child of immigrants, lost between two shores of this country I've been raised in, and the one where I was born. My father worked his hardened hands to keep us all alive. My mother took the good and bad and stood right by his side. But the struggle took its toll on Dad, and he quietly passed away on a cold and windy winter's morn with Ireland far away. Oh, I'm a child of immigrants, lost between two shores of this country I've been raised in, and the one where I was born. Now when I sing those songs my father sang when I was young, I get a feeling in my heart that wells up sweet and strong. And though I know I'll never live in dear old Ireland, oh, there's history running through my veins saying you're an Irishman. Oh, I'm a child of immigrants, lost between two shores of this country I've been raised in, and the one where I was born. Yes, I'm a child of immigrants, lost between two shores of this country I've been raised in, and the one where I was born. One more. Okay, so this will be my most recent song that I've written, and it's another song about North Bay. And where we grew up in North Bay, we were very fortunate in a way. Life was a little rough. My father had his problems, but in terms of where we grew up, we grew up in a birch forest, out in the West End, outside of North Bay, and literally there were, I don't know if you'll include this in the podcast, but we were talking about the issue of security with kids and how you worry about them. And I think I mentioned it in that last song I sang, which is we literally had a river, 2 railroad tracks, 2 highways, and a lake within 100 yards of all directions of our house. And we were isolated. The nearest neighbor was about a quarter of a mile away. And but I mean, that's what we played in from the time I can remember till 4 or 5 years old until I left after high school. But the attachment to the land, I mean, that's so true for me. And probably one of the most beautiful things that I experienced while living there was that when you walked out our driveway and across the road and across the railway track, you were on a ridge overlooking Lake Nipissing. And, it probably was, I don't know it was a sandy path that went down to a beach down below. And but it was enough of a height that you could really look out at the lake. And I just remember, I can close my eyes, and all the times when I was growing up there, particularly when I was a teenager, just being able to walk across that road when, whatever's going on in life when you're a teenager, and just stand there in the middle of the trees and the sound of the wind going through the trees and the waves on the lake. And it was just, I'm heading up to North Bay actually next week, and I'm definitely going to go stand in the middle of those trees because it was just, it's just life-giving. It's, so I think more and more over the years, I really treasure that I actually got to grow up in a place like that, let alone the birch forest, which was a wonderful thing to walk into too. So anyways, I wrote this song called Perfect Northern Day, which is based on standing there. The first verse is going to be a repetition of what I just told you in some ways. Standing on the shore of a lake where poplar trees shimmer and shake in a western breeze that can almost take my breath away. White-capped waves 'neath a summer sky, a cloud parade rolling by. I can almost say it's as if I died and went to heaven. All the troubles of the world don't mean a thing when I stand within this sacred place, just to feel the breeze and hear the cedar waxwing sing, here within this perfect northern day. Looking towards the western shore, the distant sound of a thunder roar, skies going dark not long before the storm moves in. The air, it feels electrified. I feel a stillness deep inside. My heart is full and satisfied in this moment. All the troubles of the world don't mean a thing when I stand within this sacred place, just to feel the breeze and hear the red-winged blackbirds sing, here within this perfect northern day. Looking at the beach below, where summers swoon and winters blow, I can feel the childhood memories flow all around me. A melancholy sense of time, so much is gone and left behind, a longing for just one more time around the circle. All the troubles of the world don't mean a thing when I stand within this sacred place, just to feel the breeze and hear the cedar waxwings sing, here within this perfect northern day. All the troubles of the world don't mean a thing when I stand within this sacred place, just to feel the breeze and hear the red-winged blackbirds sing, here within this perfect northern day. Here within this perfect northern day.
Michael Kelly Cavan, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome.
I want to know how you and Marshall met.
So I was just thinking about this and how, It was about 10 years ago. I had an art exhibition.
Exactly.
It was my last art exhibition at the Waterloo Community Arts Center. And my sister Kathy, I was looking for music to be played during the opening reception. And my sister Kathy mentioned Michael Kelly Cavan, who I didn't know. And she just basically said he'd be perfect. And I said, great. And the cost was nice. And so I hired him. And but there were like several hundred people at this show. And Michael was playing, not his original music, but cover songs. And I didn't in any way get to spend any time with him or really appreciate the music. It just wasn't the right setting. I loved having him there. It was a perfect accompaniment to the exhibition. But if you can imagine, it was mostly voices of people talking with some great background music. So it wasn't until I saw Michael open for Jay Semko of the Northern Pikes at the Registry. And it was very much like this, just solo at the mic, and my jaw just dropped when I heard Michael's voice. I guess I'd never heard an Irish tenor live before. And the songs were so beautiful. And then I got to see Michael perform a third time at my brother-in-law's 60th birthday party in a house show. I'd never been to a house show.
They're fun.
So anyways, I'm a big, big fan of Michael's. And I feel really fortunate to have heard him now in 4 very different settings. Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome. It's great to be here. Kathy, I have 2 daughters who are now, just soon to be 18 and 19. And they took piano lessons from Kathy.
Oh, wow.
That's
so
how I
for
got
years and years.
That's how I got to know Kathy. Yeah. She was teaching at the tannery, and we got to know her there.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Michael, your storytelling and your music is so beautiful to me, and I feel like I kind of get to know your family a little bit. The story of you guys emigrating to Canada.
It's funny. I never asked them even the process in terms of when they, like, what was it like? Did you have to go to the Canadian Embassy, and what did you say? And and like I said, it may show up in the podcast, but the location was picked because my father and particularly my father had acquaintances that were in that area.
And working in the mines.
Sudbury, Timmins, North Bay. Yeah.
Michael, I was watching that concert from the Registry Theatre from
Yes.
about 3 years ago,
Yes.
and I had no idea how many live shows you've played. Oh my gosh. Can you give us
Oh, live shows?
live concerts? Yeah.
Well, not so much concerts. I mean, I've been playing since I was probably 14 or 15. One of the interesting things when I grew up in North Bay, and I love it. It's just a happenstance, but when we did actually move from Ireland to North Bay, we originally lived north of the city, out in farming land, basically. Attended a French school, believe it or not. My first school in Canada was an all-French school, where you weren't allowed to speak English. But anyways, I didn't have much to do with it because I was like probably 4 or 5, and maybe was in kindergarten or something. But when we moved from there down to the west end of North Bay. And when we did, where we lived was just down the road from the Nipissing, what they would have called Native Reserve at that time. And so many of my childhood friends, and still to this day, my closest friend is an Indigenous person now, you would call them. So the reason I was telling you that is because the first band I played in was myself and a number of teen guys from the Nipissing Reserve. And we played dances on the reserve and some gigs around North Bay. So from that time, probably I started playing when I was about 20 in terms of a solo, and that was in North Bay as well. And I have played, the way I say it is that since that time, since I was 20, I've played every weekend all my life. So it's thousands and thousands and thousands of, I might have given a figure out, I think, because I remember that, that Malcolm Gladwell book about 10,000 hours, I think it's called. Yeah. And I'm sure I've done 20,000 or, 30,000 hours because I've played so many legions all over in Ontario. And, back in the day, especially when I was living in Toronto, when you gigged, you would get like gigs that what you would do Tuesday to Saturday night. I remember I had a Legion in Kingston where I played Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday afternoon, Saturday night, and Sunday afternoon at the one Legion.
Well, that's how you make your money when you're starting, right?
I know. But I mean, it's just the volume of now, I think it's for most people, now people gigging they're all one-shot deals. Rarely you get 2 nights even. It's just a one, you play somewhere on Friday night, you play a different place Saturday night. Now, some people get house gigs, but even that has gone away a lot. I mean, in terms of regular gigs, but most people are doing these. So consequently, you know, I mean, there might be a few people that get a Tuesday night gig or Wednesday night, but I think most people are doing Friday night or Saturday night, and maybe once a week or twice a week, you know.
And now you've been posting on Facebook during this time at home. So
Yes.
tell us about that.
Well, yeah, so that's been, you know, I feel like I'm in a new phase of my life after all this. I have to admit, I'm absolutely loving it. I still like, I still like performing live. But after 50 years of doing it, I know that there's going to be a time when I don't want to do it, like, especially for the traveling part. Not that I go very far, but I go to, right now I go from, I know the farthest west I go is Goderich, and then London, and then east to Etobicoke, and north to, I don't know, Palmerston, Barrie sometimes. So it's not huge, but in the winter it's no fun for driving. But I think I'm just losing I kind of been there, done that, you know. And so, anyways, so consequently, this thing that came about because of the COVID shutdown has been wonderful. It's really, and then I mentioned to you casually earlier that one of the most wonderful things that happened is that I've connected with my hometown of North Bay. So now I'm able to. You know, I don't think I haven't played in North Bay. I did do a concert maybe 10 or 12 years ago when I released a CD. But this has been just a wonderful way to get back in touch with all the people in North Bay that I've known all these years, and other people that have fallen out of contact with for 30 and 40 years. And I've said to my wife, I mean, if I never do anything else but, record a song and post it onto Facebook for the rest of my life, I will be quite happy, because it's just so perfect, you know.
And you weren't even looking for it. It kind of just happened. And now it's become this joyful human connection, and you found a community again with it.
Exactly. And a couple of those songs rolled back in the day, the last song, well, I don't know what order you're putting them in, but Perfect Northern Day, those are two. I think I just did 2 today. So I wrote 4. I've written 4. But I mean, both those songs came out of the fact that I'm on this. I made this reconnection with North Bay, and now I'm thinking, you know, there's no end to what I can write about. I had a little sort of a revelation in the sense that I was thinking, you know, God, well, what am I going to write about? You know, kind of run out of ideas. And then there's 2 guys that post on the Bit of the Bay. They're photographers. There's one guy called. This is a third person who's might not get this right, but he's called Mr. Sunset, because for years and years he's been posting sunsets. He takes a picture of the sunset every night, and so he has this. So he's known for his sunset pictures because he just does so many of them.
That's fantastic.
And anyways, when I look at these pictures, these other fellas post of the lake and of North Bay downtown, or of older buildings that have been around town. You know, I think to myself, you could take a picture of that lake or that sunset every day, and every day it would be different. Mm-hmm. There'd be some different quality to it, some capturing of that moment. And I had a little reflection to myself that that's what a song is. A song, at least the type of songs that I write, they're like little pictures of something. And so I just kind of realized there's really no end to what I can write about. There's no, you know, I just have to think back to my years there, and like I'm working on a song about the drive-in right now, and there's another one I'm working on as well. And I wrote a song. One of the other songs I've written recently was about the sinking of a ship in Nipissing back in the 1800s, and there's just all this stuff you could write about.
And this historical website that you're now on. You can just pull from this material.
Exactly. Like, I mean, so what happens, like, for example, the drive-in song, which I'm only just beginning it, but, you know, some people have put up the fact in, like, many small towns, drive-ins were like a really cool thing, and North Bay had a famous one locally as well. And so when somebody posts a picture of this drive-in, there's like maybe a couple hundred people respond with their stories of what happened at the drive-in. So I mean, it's like I get to go in there and fish around and pull a line out of here and a line out of there, and it's just it's a perfect. So my experience on Facebook has been such that, especially finding the Bit of the Bay site, has been like, this is perfect. I couldn't want for anything more. And like I said, also the reconnection with North Bay, but I had not been writing songs for a number of years. And it's just kind of sparked this, oh my God, I can do this. I can do this forever, you know? So
And you also teach songwriting?
you know, a number of years ago, I had a location at the Globe Studios, you know, where all the artisans,
My kids
artists.
take our classes there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, so I had a studio in there, which was the Cavan Creative School of Songwriting, and I brought in a number of some well-known couple guys from the U.S. That are well-known, like one person that teaches at Berkeley Music School in Boston, and another guy's from California. Just people that I've met, saw online or had some connection to, and they come up and did some courses there. It just didn't work. I'm not that way inclined. I'm not somebody that can organize that stuff. So I think I did that for maybe about a year or so, and then I took a 4-year diploma course from Berkeley in Boston, a 4-year. So I have a plaque on my wall that says Master of Songwriting, whatever that means.
That's fantastic.
Well, I mean, and of course it's that old thing story, right? Paul McCartney doesn't have a master's in songwriting. So I take it for what it is, and what it was, and what I think is it was a wonderful immersion, because it was actually like 8 semesters. Like, so from September to Christmas or in November, I was on the site every day for 4 years, and so we went through just so much stuff. I mean, even the world of rhyming. You know, I never realized, everybody knows Moon, June, and all this, but just to discover all the different layers. It was almost like poetry based, right? All the different layers of the rhyming stuff, and internal rhyming and all that stuff, and then just the sharing. I mean, the people in the course were from Europe and Southeast Asia, and it was just, so you were in a classroom of all these different people. So that was a wonderful, wonderful experience. And I'm sure I don't even know the benefits I've got. All I know is that when I write now, it's probably in me, and so it certainly has facilitated my ability to put a sentence together, or to think about how I'm writing a song. Like, I mean, interesting things like internal and external. You know, you describe there's a tree with leaves, and then you say, "My heart is full and satisfied." So that's an external tree that's there and then the flip into the experience within me. So this little game of playing, just being aware of that, that if you paint a picture and then you express a feeling about that picture, you've gone from external to internal. So there's this whole way of doing that. So it's through this song I can see the pattern of that. So the next verse will have 2 externals and 1 internal. You know, rather than just 3. Like, just describing a scene, I actually include a feeling in there as well. So those were little things that we studied, you know.
And it makes a difference, right? Because
it does.
You don't know, as a listener, you don't know that you're picking that up, but it's painting you that picture of the storytelling and what's happening, right?
It is. And it's drawing you in. Because when I express that fullness of my heart, then you have you can
connect.
Yeah, exactly. You can remember things that you experienced that caused the fullness in your heart. So it's a beautiful. So anyways, so that was well worth the time and money to do that Berkeley course. But anyways,
No, that answers it.
I've never actually heard that before. That makes so much.
Internal and external.
Yeah. And there's all kinds of that.
For shame.
If I went through my books, there's all kinds of little things like that. Little just somebody who's looked at the science of writing a song or writing poetry, and all those little things that you're probably doing anyways. But it's cool to have it parsed out and then applied, and then it's something you can actually use as a tool. So I can go back and review a song and say, I've got the pattern, external, internal, and this last verse I'm not doing that. Now I have to have a reason why I'm not doing it. But usually what it is that I go back and try to find an internal thing to say in the third line.
Yeah, to bring it home, right?
Yeah, and like you said there, that an audience doesn't know that, but yet that's the way we are with music, right? I don't know, when I'm listening to classical music, I don't know think of the science of that, my God. But I do know what I'm left with, whether I'm crying or I'm excited or I'm drawn into it. It's because of somebody's using some particular...
Some callback.
Yes.
Right?
Like even intervals. There's another cool one. You know, a sixth, like certain intervals when you go from, you know, the root note to the sixth, that creates a different emotion than going from the root note to the seventh.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've got a song that you want the emotion, a particular emotion, you know that if I use a sixth, if I go down, no, I can't, I'm not having a perfect pitch, I can't do it. But if I use that interval, I know that I'm going to get the person into the space of what I want them to be in with the lyric that I'm presenting. So there's all that stuff, which is just so cool. So there's a lot of cool stuff.
I could talk about that all night.
Yeah.
What did I guess when you started writing as a teen, what were the first songs you wrote? Do you remember what the subject matter was and what?
Yeah, I think the first song that I remember actually, I can remember sitting in the backseat of maybe the backseat of the car, like I wrote in the song, with my older brothers and sisters. I don't remember. I know they were much bigger than me, and so I must have been 10, and they were in their teens. Was a song called "Something in a Friendship," and I don't even know where that came out of. Something in a friendship that demands your time. Something in a friendship, not just when you need a dime. You don't just come running around when things are looking good for you. Something in a friendship, like doing things that you don't want to do. So that was a little song that I had. And some of my siblings, my sister is almost my age. She often will hum that song to me. When we're somewhere. Because she remembers it. And so and then with the band, with the my friends, Indigenous friends that we formed a band. It was a situation, I think, where none of them really sang. So I was just a singer in the band. I didn't play guitar or anything. But I wrote a bunch of songs that we sang in that band. I'm Leaving My Best Friend was one song. The Bird, we wrote a song called The Bird, which is like almost like in those years in the 60s, everybody was writing a song to do a weird dance.
Mm-hmm.
So we had the song called The Bird, and so I wrote that, and so that's what it was, writing sort of poppy type stuff, and then introspective stuff,
As brooding teenagers do.
Yes. I wrote a song called Oh Mama, Tell Me Why I Feel an Emptiness and Loneliness that's just unreal. With every new day dawning and every sundown gone, I feel a whole new wave of lonely feelings coming on. It was pretty dark.
But you sang it in that beautiful voice, right?
Well, I felt, oh mama, mama, tell me why I feel an emptiness and loneliness that's just unreal. With every new day dawning and every sundown gone, I feel a whole new wave of lonely feelings coming on. Yeah, so that's...
We were talking earlier, and I'm not sure if it was off mic or not, because we were having so much fun with your music, but we were talking earlier about emigrating or immigrating, depending, and doing that as a teenager. And are you old enough, and are you ready? And these poor souls being, dropped into a whole new land and trying to figure it out. But if you're writing a song like that as a teenager,
yes,
I think you're ready,
I'm ready for
it, just to take on the world. Like, I think sometimes we don't give teens the credit that they deserve, that that they've been brought up right and they can handle tough things.
Oh, you mean, and they can actually think?
Yes.
Yes,
yeah.
And have thoughts, and that is true. That's true. And having my own children, there is that, especially my daughters now that are, like I said, about to be 18 and 19. That letting go of the fact that these are fully formed human beings. I know the brain doesn't fully form until you're 25 or 30, whatever it is. Or
I think 26.
Is it 26?
I think it's 40 for men.
Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say it. I'm not sure whether mine has fully formed yet, but the point being that yes, you sort of, it is true that there is that time when you realize this is the whole person across from me here. It's got their own ideas about the world, and
they can figure stuff out.
They can. And I kept journals more so in my late teens and early 20s. And when I go back and look at that, I mean, oh my God, the stuff I was writing in terms of, I had the world figured out. That's the danger of that age, actually. Yeah. And you look at the world in terms of art too. I mean, many people were great artists in their teens. I mean, many great songwriters. I think of even the Beatles were in their early 20s when we would still consider those people, kind of not quite growing up yet. And one of my favorite songwriters is in the pop world is Jimmy Webb, and he wrote most of his songs when he was 17. Like a lot of those big hits. I don't know if you know Jimmy Webb. He wrote a lot of Glenn Campbell songs, Wichita Lineman, and
It's a great
By the
song.
Time I Get to Phoenix, and Up and Away. I mean, he wrote so many different songs. Oh, and one of the most beautiful songs he wrote is called "The Moon's a Harsh Mistress." But I mean, what a song! Oh my God, But he wrote those when he was young. So I mean, yeah. I think we have a weird thing about maturity in this world
I think we do.
because we know it's not true in the rest of the world. Somebody who's 17 or 18 in a lot of cultures is considered
A grown-up.
they're probably even
Yeah.
they probably might have a couple of children by
Yeah.
that. And over here we coddle we're coddled till people are 25 or
sacred.
30.
Yeah, that time is sacred.
It is.
Can you relate to that?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
When you mentioned the Beatles, I think I've mentioned this a couple times down the podcast, but Paul McCartney wrote the song Yesterday when he was 22. And I just don't understand how a 22-year-old can write Yesterday.
Yes.
Like, that's not only, I think that's one of the most amazing songs ever written.
Well, it really is.
But I don't understand how he had the emotional capacity.
You might not have. You know what?
Yeah.
It could, bear with me here. It could just be a really well-written song that's not necessarily intended with the amount of emotion and the amount of pain and sympathy and empathy and all of these things that people, like as listeners, have gotten from it over the years.
Yes.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm talking about the way Paul delivered the vocals too. It's just
Yes.
Well,
Yeah,
Oh,
but I mean,
beautiful, creamy
I
voice.
think that's the. I mean, that's why I say some of the way we are strange about that is that we don't think that, but young people do have huge emotions, and and everybody moves at a different level. What when you said that about Paul McCartney and writing Yesterday, one of the wonderful things over the last few years I came across was that Both Sides Now by Joni Mitchell. And she was like, I don't know, maybe in her late teens, early 20s when she wrote that song. And of course, the original version is beautiful. But I don't know if you've ever seen the version she does when she turned 70
I've seen that.
with the Nelson Riddle Orchestra or something. Oh my God! Like I mean, it's the difference that is almost like what you're talking about. This is a 70-year-old woman talking about I've looked at life, as opposed to a 20-year-old. You're right, but she's not singing anything different in terms of the words. Yet that 20-year-old, I think that's what
It's
you
a
might
different
be
song.
saying is that the person yesterday might not have carried the same weight for McCartney when he wrote it. He was writing it because he's a man full of melody, and he's obviously a great lyricist.
And it's a very simple song. The lyrics aren't complex. So it's
No.
very simple.
Yes.
But young people are full of tons of emotion.
Yes.
Maybe even more so than us grown-ups are, because we're a little bit jaded by the time we reach this point. Not jaded in a sad way, just, we've been through a lot. We handle things with a little bit more calmness, hopefully.
Yeah.
Some of us do. But we're not walking around carrying the entire weight of growing up as a young person every day, all day.
No.
Right.
Well, for a lot of people, I'm not saying it's everybody, but for a lot of people, there's a kind of that's my experience is there's a level of contentment and settling that goes on that I know I'm experiencing that in my life right now, where it's like, it actually feels wonderful, where there isn't as much. I mean, think about it, from the age of 15 to, at least in my case, 15 to 30, it's a very difficult time. Different parts of that 15 years, but it's a very, you don't know who you are.
A lot of moving parts.
You're kind of bumbling around, it's just a lot of messy stuff going on in there. And, it's I can say for myself that right now at my age that there's not much messy stuff anymore.
Right.
It's just, you know what I mean? Especially and with children, you get to go through that again in the sense that you see your kids just struggling with everything that they're going to have to deal with, and you realize that. You've come through all that. You've been through all that's what most of what they're going to experience. I've already been through it.
I try really hard with mine because they're 12 and 14. So you've been there. I try really hard to not brush off like, oh, everybody goes through that. I went through that. More just being like, I hear you and I understand that feeling is really cruddy right now. Yes. I have been there. Let's talk about that. And then once we feel it, if you're ready, we can talk about solutions or how we're going to handle it. But like if I'm just going to brush it, those feelings are so real for those young people. If I'm just going to brush it off, then I'm not paying attention.
Yeah, no,
Right?
I absolutely. I mean, I try my best to catch myself to not negate it or make it like, oh, big deal.
Everyone goes through that, you know?
No, I think, I mean, for myself, I think what shows up in my relationship with my girls is, I think the emotion of compassion. I just feel for them because I know, oh my God, that one, when it's a particular issue and it's like that one, oh my God, I'm glad I'm over that one. But I don't say that to them.
No.
But I mean, but I do really get, it's tough. It's a tough time.
Mm-hmm.
To jump to the other end of the age spectrum, I think about how much your songs must resonate with the older folks too.
Sure.
I listen to Midway. Sorry, that song you wrote about the Midway.
When the Midway came to town.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And just people who are older than us must absolutely like. I love that.
I can relate to
grew up
that.
with Midway.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, that's another generation who probably find great joy in the fact that you're honoring that time, a simpler time, and expressing your love for that time, because they must sometimes feel a real disconnect and wonder if anyone other than themselves remember, those times,
I see what you mean.
like the way the Midway used to be.
Sure,
And
sure.
Yeah, I felt that too. That's how we rolled back in the day. Like when you're talking about putting caps on the train tracks, I didn't do that. We did pennies, but I could smell caps. I used to scratch them with my fingernail, and then you would burn your fingernail. But it was so worth it. It was so worth it just to get that cap to pop.
Yeah, that's
but
right.
I felt some of those things when I'm hearing that song,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, and I think well, it's interesting going back to the being on the Bit of the Bass site and being on Facebook, actually, because Facebook is considered now, I think, an old person's.
It is.
My daughters are on Instagram and Snapchat and
Kids don't email.
WhatsApp.
Kids don't face.
They're on all those other things, and I'm realizing it's actually great that I'm on Facebook because that's where that generation, my people are on there. And you're right, and so the reaction and the comments I get is exactly that, Marshall. It's people saying, "Oh my God, just thank you so much for bringing back those memories," and it does. I mean, I think that's interesting the way you're putting it too. That the fact that they get to share that memory with a whole bunch of other people in a conversation, because the comments are like a conversation. I mean, it's you're just making me realize it's kind of a beautiful thing.
To some kids, you might have to explain what a bottle game is.
Yeah, exactly.
Or what caps are.
Yeah, so sure. Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think my daughters wouldn't know some of those things, but
Michael did this funny thing. I saw him before him at the registry, and Pokemon Go was brand new.
Oh, yes.
But he called it Pokemon.
That's funny.
Anyways, I do that all the time too.
Pokemon.
With new things.
Yes.
Pokemon.
Yeah.
I probably cut this out, but my father-in-law thinks it's Jamaican.
Yeah.
So he calls it like Pokemon. Like it's not a racial slur.
Oh, yeah.
Like he's like, oh, that Jamaican game, the Pokemon. That's what he.
Right.
This is coming out, but.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Michael, this is a first for us. Thank you so much for filling up our show, half the show with music and storytelling.
Yeah, this was wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much for having me here. This is really special. I'm looking forward to listening to it.
It's such a gift
when
to
it
have been
comes
able
out.
to enjoy your music tonight.
Yes. I love this format. It's very nice and comfortable. And
Yeah, great to see you again.
okay, great to see you.
Will you come back sometime?
Oh, absolutely.
Awesome.
As soon as I got the next 4 or 5 North Bay songs done.
Get back on that Bit of the Bay and pull that material out.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you
Thanks
so
for having
much.
me.
Hey all, thanks for meeting us in Bonn Park. Please like, rate, and subscribe to our podcast on the platform that you're listening to. And follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Bonn Park Podcast. Original music by Alan Lung.